From Southern California, this is The Circle of Insight, a show about everything in psychology. Hear the latest in news and views on psychology. Our motto is simple: wherever there is psychology involved, we are there. And now, here's your host of The Circle of Insight, Carlos Vasquez.
From wherever you are around the world, welcome and thank you for joining us at The Circle of Insight. Today we're going to be exploring mindless eating with Dr. Wansink. Dr. Wansink is the director and professor at the Food and Lab at Cornell University. He's also a best-selling author of Mindless Eating, and his new release came out just recently, Slim by Design. Welcome to The Circle, Dr. Wansink.
Oh, it's great to be with you. Thank you.
This is really a fascinating topic, especially as New Year's is here and a lot of people are starting to focus on what they're eating. And what I loved about your books is that these are things that people don't even realize that's happening to them. And it's kind of a war between the restaurants per se and the actual everyday consumer, an unconscious war. So can you tell us a little bit about this mindless eating?
It's almost much more of a war between ourselves and ourselves. Okay, so what we found is that even though we think we're master and commander of our food decisions, most people make about 200 decisions about food a day. Because it's not just whether you're going to have Trix or Fruit Loops for breakfast, but it's how much you're going to pour, whether you have seconds, how much you eat, how much milk you put on, whether you drink out of the bowl at the end. By the time you've finished breakfast, you've made about 20 to 30 decisions about food.
Fascinating. Wow. I didn't think about
And
that.
what happens with all the rest of those decisions is they're the ones we're fairly unconscious about. And that's why the environment around us, the way we set up our environment, can really cause us to overeat. The size of a plate we use, what the person's doing next to us, the lighting in the room, it all can lead us to unconsciously eat more than we want. But the good news there is we can also make those changes. If we know what they are, we can make those changes, and we can make them once to help us mindlessly eat less rather than mindlessly overeat.
Interesting. That's fast. 200 decisions.
No, 200.
200. Yeah, I'm already tired just thinking about that. So I know some of the things you mentioned in the book. You said plate size influences how we eat?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of research that shows that what's the right amount of food, the right amount of pasta to serve? Nobody knows. So what you do is you serve a little bit out in your plate, and if it looks right, you stop. What we find is that if people serve on a slightly smaller plate, like a 9 to 10 inch plate, they'll serve about 4 ounces. But if you give a person the size plate that most of us have in our kitchens, about 12 inches, the typical person will serve about 22% more, because at 4 ounces, it's a full plate on the small plate. On this big plate, 4 ounces looks like an appetizer. So what do? You put on another scoop. But the thing is, at the end of that meal, both people think they're equally full, because in both their minds, they've eaten a full plate of food.
Wow, so perception really has a big part in this.
Yeah, we basically eat with our eyes and not with our stomach.
That's really fascinating. I know we're going to talk more in the second part of this segment about your new book, Slim by Design, on how to overcome some of these challenges. I know there are more challenges besides the plate size. You said something about when you eat more when you eat with your friends?
Well, wouldn't you with anybody, actually? So what happens if you eat with one additional person, you'll eat about 30% more food than if you just eat by yourself. If you eat with 7 or more people, you're going to eat almost 90% more food. Because what happens is you're around these people, you eat longer, you stay longer at the table, somebody orders an extra appetizer, you order an appetizer, somebody else takes a piece of bread, you take a piece of bread. And what happens is that we sort of become co-conspirators in overconsumption. The key to this is not to eat by yourself in the closet so you'll eat less. The key is simply to set up some very easy to remember decision rules that you can use to eat less without thinking about it. So for instance, we have something we call the Slim by Design restaurant rule of 2, which pretty much means it refers to the fact that most people, when they overeat at restaurants, they don't overeat their entrees. They overeat because of everything else around them. 2 pieces of bread, 2 glasses of wine, the appetizer, you split a dessert, you have a coffee. And the thing is to say, look, if I order a reasonable entree, let me limit myself just to 2 other things that I want the most. we find that when people do that, they order what they want the most, and they don't feel deprived at all. And what ends up happening by the end of the meal is they say, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty satisfied. And what they've done in our studies is they estimate, again, it's just an estimation, that they've eaten between 25 and 30% fewer calories if they use this slim by design restaurant rule of 2.
That's considerable.
Yeah. Because you have to
Especially
also remember that they're almost eating 100% more than they would to begin with because they're with all these other people.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Did you see anything, or did you even see, or just study business lunches and dinners? Was that part of this study, or is that separate?
No, these were all social dinners.
Social dinners.
And one of the things that's a little bit different with social dinners than business dinners is we don't tend to be on our best behavior if we're with people we know. Now, it's different if we're like on a date. We don't tend to be on our best behavior, whereas with business dinners, a lot of people end up being very conscious of what they do. And some studies, they're mixed, but some studies seem to indicate that people are a little more conservative about what they do, and they consume a little less if it's a business deal they're not familiar with.
I wonder if we would eat less if we had dinner with somebody we didn't like.
What we've done a couple of things where we've actually raised people's emotions one direction or the other by having them sit with a confederate who either brought up a very controversial topic that they disagreed with, or brought up a very controversial topic that they agreed with. And in both cases, what happens is people end up eating a lot less in either case than they would in a control condition. In one case, because you're just so mad at the person, you're thinking about what's going on in your mind. In the other case, you're so excited to be with the person who you agree with that, again, you start talking with them and you don't eat.
Really?
It's a bad strategy to eat less. Just stay have fights at the table.
Yeah, that's a whole different. We have to have an endocrinologist in here to talk about that later. Now, you did say that there were some covert operations going on in the restaurants. And by what I mean by that is there are hidden persuaders, as well as the supermarkets too.
Well, there are hidden persuaders. There are more hidden persuaders in our kitchen than there's in any restaurant or in any grocery store.
Wow.
And I think what happens, if a waiter brings you a bread basket, in some ways it's a hidden persuader, but boy, it's not one you have to put up with if you don't want to. I mean, in fact, since we started doing this research, it was actually about 25 years ago. I was a Ph.D. student in California at the time, but when we started doing the research, we started realizing that a lot of the things that we do, we end up being our own worst enemy. I mean, if we go to a Mexican restaurant and we eat all the chips and all the salsa beforehand, what we do is we end up liking the main course worse. When we bring people in for studies, we either give them bread to eat before meals or give them kind of nachos or Tostitos to eat before meals. They like those and eat a lot of those, but they rate the food, they rate the entire meal as a whole lot less fun. Because it wasn't as tasty, because it was full by the time they got it. So some of the things restaurants do, I don't think they're being overly covert about it, but they actually shoot themselves in the foot.
That's
and one of the things that restaurants do, and this is actually in chapter 3 of my new book, Slim by Design, is restaurant menus are engineered in a way that sort of guides your eye, and it also guides your expectations. And both your attention and your expectation about food are what pretty much determines what you eat and how much you like it. But unfortunately, a lot of these restaurant menus are set up somewhat randomly. So what they'll do is your eyes look at somewhat of a Z-shaped pattern when you look at a menu. You kind of start in this upper right-hand corner, you go over here, you go down here, and you go over here. It's a reverse Z.
Huh.
And what a lot of restaurants, just by coincidence, unknowingly have done, is they put their big sellers in those corners. I think they just stumble upon that.
Really?
Yeah, but the problem with most big selling items in restaurants is they're not, first of all, they're not the healthiest for us, but they're also typically not the most profitable for them.
Oh.
Because what happens is they'll say, a lot of people buy chicken wings or onion rings, buffalo chicken wings or onion rings. And so they put those in those corners. Those aren't the big profit makers for the restaurants, because they have to actually price those pretty much in comparity with the competition. Where they make profit is on that shrimp salad. So it's like 14 cents worth of lettuce and it's charging $12. But there's easy things that you can do when you go to a restaurant if you don't want to get trapped by some of these. Some of them are just rules of thumb that you can have. But one of the best things that I do is if I'm trying to find like that, you know, hidden, great, tasty thing on the menu is I simply ask the waiter or waitress, and we've got the words you can do this in my book, Slim by Design, but we ask, hey, what are 2 or 3 of your lighter entrees that people seem to really like? Yeah. Now, what you don't want to say is what most people would say, which is, hey, what are 2 or 3 of your healthiest items? Because then what's going to happen is the person's just going to point you at the salads and be gone. You don't want that. You want them to say, hey, you know, there's the pork chop they make. They bake it. It's got this incredible peach sauce. It's really good, and it's really a great light option. And you get that if you ask for 2 or 3 of the lightest items instead of 2 or 3 of the healthiest.
Oh, really?
PH, health, yeah.
Just that switch of the word.
Really easy, because healthy means salad, so that's what they tell you about. You say, what are lighter items? They're like, oh yeah, lighter. Let me think. Yeah, there's a couple. But there's easy solutions to these problems when you go to the 5 places that trip us up the most. I mean, when we focus on eating, sometimes we say, oh, I don't know where to start. Look, it's all around us. But really, for everybody, almost all of the food they eat is in one of 5 places. It's their homes. It's the 2 or 3 restaurants they go to the most. Not their favorite restaurants, but the ones they go to the most. I mean, for me, it's a McDonald's and an Applebee's because they're the ones my kids like. They're right next door. It's where you shop for groceries. It's where you work and your kids go to school. And if we can make 1 or 2 changes in those places, and if we can ask them to make 1 or 2 changes to help us, we're not just going to influence the way we and our family eat, but we're going to influence our entire neighborhood and eventually states and nations.
That's absolutely true. That's something, one of the biggest problems we have in this country is obesity.
Hi, welcome to Adelante. This is Adelante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Adelante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
A lot of time we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona Del Mar, which is a confidential location, we're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
Before we get on to some of the solutions you provide in Slim by Design, a couple of last things here. You said music influences how we eat.
Yeah, so we've done some really kind of neat studies in this. One thing we did was we wanted to see, we were trying to figure out what could a fast food restaurant do if they wanted you to get to eat healthier. And we went to a Carl's Jr., which is of course now Hardee's. Carl's Jr., I know you're in California, it's a big California chain, it's a great chain. And this Carl's Jr. was transforming over to a Hardee's. And so what it was doing was there's going to be some construction. And we said, hey, if you let us redo your restaurant, it'll be cool. And so we divided the restaurant in half and put up a wall where half it was the normal sort of, the loud rock and roll AC/DC music they usually play in the afternoon, the real bright lights. And the other half, we turned all the lights down and we played like a smooth, cool jazz by Miles Davis. It was this album, Kind of Blue. And people had this exact same things deep, but we found if people were eating in the darker, quieter place, they ended up eating, they ate about 9 minutes longer, but they ate 18% less food, and they rated the food as tasting better. Well, because all that happened was that cold French fries, are kind of terrible. So if they slowed down too much, they just didn't eat that stuff. I mean, there's
Really?
great news you can use there if you're a fast food lover. And that, you might not be able to turn the music down, but you can find the quietest corner to sit in, or the darkest corner. And there's also good news you can use there. Bless you. There's also good news you can use there if you're a parent at home. Just make sure you turn off the TV set, turn the lights down, and enjoy dinner instead of the TV.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And actually talk to your child.
Whoa! What a concept!
We kind of lost that, didn't we?
Yeah. I just last night I saw this movie Interstellar, and for people who haven't seen it and who have kids, it is an amazing movie about connections between kids. It's really highly
really?
recommended.
That's good. We'll promote that too. Interstellar. Excellent. So, we found out some of these hardships that we have to overcome, these obstacles, better said, and trying to eat better. What do we do? How do we get out of this quagmire?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that you don't want to do is do what most people do when they hear about life hacks. You kind of hear a cool new life hack and kind of go, yeah, I should do that sometime, and you never do. The way to look at some of these things is look at them not as not as tips or life hacks, but to look at them as tools. In a lot of cases, I think the first thing that people can do is I can say, hey, look, here's what happens when you serve on a bigger plate. Here's what happens when you serve family style instead of keeping the food on the stove and going back for seconds or thirds only if you need them. Here's what happens if you have a fruit bowl sitting on your counter. But I can tell people these different things, and people kind of go, yeah, that's a good idea. They often don't do them. I mean, we have thousands of people who do because they get lots of thank you notes, but a lot of people kind of go, now that I know that, I won't let it happen to me. But one of the things we find is that, I guess, like in many areas of psychology, that if you can get people to really come to the realization that, wow, things aren't as good for me as they should be, you can get some change. And the way we do this is in Slim by Design at the back of every chapter, which is, again, homes, restaurants, grocery stores, work sites, and where your kid goes to school. There's 100-point scorecards where you can go through, and in 10 minutes, you can score your entire home. Hey, is there fruit sitting out? Is there breakfast cereal that's visible? Are my plates between 9 and 10 inches? And everything you get a point for. And at the end of doing that, you can tell whether your home is making you fat by design, or heavy by design, or healthy by design, slim by design. And we find that is the huge awareness builder in most people. People go, pop, wow, you mean I got a 31 out of 100? All this time my kitchen's been making me fat or heavy and hasn't been helping me? And I think what we have is on the website, slimbydesign.org, people can take these 10-point abbreviated scorecards. So it's just a little bitty scorecard, like, it'll ask you questions like, okay, is the first item that you serve and eat a vegetable in a salad? Do you do that before you bring out the pasta and the meatloaf? If so, you get a point. Second, you serve your main dishes from the stove or from a counter instead of having that pasta sitting right in front of you, staring at you, saying, take seconds, take thirds. If you do, you get another point. I mean, our research finds that you'll eat about 19%, nearly 20% less of anything that's sitting on a counter or stove than what's sitting right in front of you.
Really?
Well, because what happens is that it's very easy. For guys, we eat about 30% less because we eat fast. We tend to eat seconds and thirds. Women only eat about 10% less because they're less prone to seconds and thirds. But I mean, I think the best point to do is that for each of these areas, each of these zones, go take those quizzes in slimbydesign.org. They're not quizzes, they're scorecards. See how well you score. See if that place is working for you or against you. Because then you know the easy, small change you can make tonight to turn things around.
That's fantastic. Any other tip in the last couple of minutes here?
But I think that's the strong thing to do. But then also realize that there's almost any problem that you have, whether it be snacking too much in the afternoon, or there's a solution for almost everything that doesn't involve deprivation. The thing you don't want to do is say, I'm never going to eat chocolate again in my life. No, it's silly. It's going to backfire. One of the things we find, and you can read a lot about these in Slim by Design, is we found that if you eat just a quarter of the amount of a snack that you would typically eat, like a 4 o'clock afternoon snack, you eat 2 pieces of chocolate instead of 8 Hershey Kisses or whatever. What happens is that you're going to rate yourself equally full, equally satisfied, and as feeling less guilty 15 minutes later. But what you're going to have to do is within that 15-minute period, you're going to have to do something that distracts yourself. I mean, in our studies, we had people either straighten up their office or return a couple phone calls. And as long as they put the food away and did that, they were happier, they felt equally satisfied, and all they could remember is that a few minutes ago, I had a chocolate snack and I can still kind of taste it. So whatever impossible food funk you think you're in, there's easy behavioral solutions to these. Now, some of those are in mindless eating, some of those are in Slim by Design, and we're actually coming out with a coach. We call it the Slim by Design method that should be available about the end of January. It's a free service to people. They go in and we ask them some questions, we diagnose them, and we say, these are the things that are statistically most likely to help you lose weight in the next month.
That's phenomenal stuff, Dr. Wansink. Phenomenal stuff. Great books. I love both of them, Mindless Eating and Slim by Design. Where can we get them? Where can we get your website? You said it a couple times, I think, slimbydesign.org?
Slimbydesign.org is the website. Both the books are available in your favorite bookstores or at Amazon, and I think at least Slim by Design, or at least Mindless Eating is, I think, in like 30 languages.
30 languages, great. Thank you so much again, Dr. Wansink, for being on The Circle. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you learned a lot. I sure did. Watch out for those plates. Remember, our motto is simple. Wherever there's psychology involved, we are there. We'll see you next time, everyone.